Hi everyone, in this video I wanted to talk a little bit about the number 8 and the number 7, and I wanted to share this video with you if you haven't already seen it. It's by Arthur Prudent. This is an excellent video and it's got a lot of good information in it that has to do with numbers, primarily the numbers 17 and 777 and the number 7. So it's primarily about the number 7 and the importance of it in the Bible. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about the number 8, and it's interesting how when these numbers merge over here, they form the number 88. As you can see here. So I thought that was really amazing, and I just think this depiction over here is basically a summary of the entire Bible. That's what it all ends up being. This is the number for Jesus Christ, and I believe this represents the restored DNA, which right now is as it was before, right side up, upside down, with the 69, which represents the yin-yang symbol. So it's right side up, upside down. But then when the DNA is restored, it turns into a perfect 88. I believe that's a representation of the entire Bible. And I want to talk a little bit more about that later. It's interesting that this comes up at the 108 mark. The 88 right here comes up at the 108 mark, and we're in the year 2018 right now, which is what I want to talk about a little more. But I also want to talk about the number 7, and what Arthur Prudent talks about in this video. One of the things that he talks about is this scientist over here named Ivan Panin, who was a Russian scientist, and I jotted down a few notes about him. But it said in the video that when he was 22 years old, he went to the United States and he studied at Harvard, where he learned Greek and Hebrew. And it was when he was about 35 years old that he realized that there was a pattern in the Bible, primarily having to do with the number 7. He found like 50 different multiples of 7 just in the first verse of the Bible, which is made up of 7 words in the Hebrew. And so there was all these patterns with the number 7, and he realized that these patterns couldn't be by chance, and that's when he became a believer. And then he spent the next 50 years of his life just studying the number patterns in the Bible. Okay, and over here is a short summary of some of the things that he discovered and the patterns having to do with the number 7 and the number 14. And what I thought was really amazing was this one over here. It's number 14 on this list. But another thing that he discovered is that the numeric value of the words Elohim, heaven and earth, is 777. And I thought that was really amazing because it says in the Bible that God tells us the end from the beginning. And so this is the very first verse of the Bible, and you see that the word for God is Elohim, saying in the beginning God created the heaven and the earth. So you have Elohim and then heaven and earth, and the numeric value of those 3 words, which are the primary words in this first verse, is what it's all about, add up to 777, and we're currently in the Hebrew year 5777. Okay, so there's a lot of other really amazing facts in this video, which I'll try to point out some of them, but I just recommend that you watch the entire video because it's loaded with information that's very important about these numbers. But since I have this scripture up, I wanted to point out something else that I noticed, which is something that I commented about in Arthur Prudent's video. And so I'm going to kind of go back and forth between some of the things that I've noticed and some of the things that were in the video. But one of the things that I noticed is that the number for Earth is 777. 6. Okay, and the Strong's number for Adam, I'll show you that in a second, but it's interesting that Adam comes up in 27 verses in the Bible. It occurs 30 times, but there's 27 verses in the entire Bible that have the word Adam. And Adam was created in Genesis 1:27 is when God created Adam. And then again in Genesis 2:7, so both times it comes up in 27, and the word Adam comes up in 27 verses. But the word Adam actually means earth. And so I want to show you the Strong's number in the New Testament. I'll just go to the last use of the word Adam in the New Testament. It's interesting that it comes up in Jude 14, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but it's saying here he's the 7th from Enoch, or Enoch was the 7th from Adam, and it's coming up in verse 14. But the word Adam in the Greek is Strong's 7:6, and it means the red earth. And so the Hebrew Strong's number for earth is 776. And what I began to realize that I'll talk a little bit more about is I believe these years, 776, and then 777, and then 778, I believe they're all important, and I'm going to show you why in just a minute. But another thing that I noticed about the word Adam, if you go back to the original Hebrew for the word Adam, you see that it's Strong's 121 and 120. So there's two Strong's numbers for the word Adam. This one is Adam as in man or mankind. It's also the name Adam. So there's very little difference between these two. If you go to 119, that's also Adam, which is interesting, and that means to be red. But if you go to 120, you see that it's Adam, the name Adam, and there's 120 Jubilees that make up 6,000 years. And then if you go to the next Strong's, it's 121. So in the new millennium, when the new millennium begins, which I believe is in 2018, that would be the 121st Jubilee, the beginning of the 121st Jubilee. Okay, so I started thinking about the Jubilee, and I was reminded of a scripture that I already knew about, but it seems to make a lot more sense now. But also wanted to look at the Jubilees because it seems to me that God is giving the year of the Jubilee over here in Leviticus 27:17. I made a video about this some time ago, but if you look at the scripture, it says, "If he sanctify his field from the year of Jubilee, according to thy estimation, it shall stand." And you see that verse is coming up in 27:17. That's the first mention of the word Jubilee in Leviticus 27. Where it talks about the Jubilee, and then it talks about the Jubilee in Numbers 36:4, and in Leviticus 25 it talks about the Jubilee. But I just felt like God was giving the year here with this verse, 27:17, and I made a video about that. But I just want to explain something about the Jubilees that it talks about in Leviticus. Okay, starting with verse 8 in Leviticus 25, it says, "And thou shalt number 7 Sabbaths of years unto thee, 7 times 7 years, and the space of 7 Sabbaths of years shall be unto thee 49 years. And thou shalt cause the trumpet of the Jubilee to sound on the 10th day of the 7th month. In the day of atonement shall you make the trumpet sound throughout all your land. And ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a Jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family." So the trumpet is sounded after 49 years. And then the 50th year is to be hallowed. It's the Jubilee year. But then it goes on to say, if you go down to verse 20, it says, "And if ye shall say, What shall we eat the 7th year? Behold, we shall not sow nor gather in our increase. Then I will command my blessing upon you in the 6th year, and ye shall sow the 8th year, and eat yet of old fruit until the 9th year, until her fruits come in, ye shall eat of the old store." So over here God is saying that in the 7th year, if you say, "What shall we eat?" then he's going to command his blessing upon you in the 6th year. And the 7th year was the year 5776. It's when a lot of people believed the Jubilee was to begin. They believed it was going to be the 49th year or the 7th year. And prior to that, they believed it was going to be the 6th year, which was the Hebrew year 5775. That was the year that Mark Biltz had come up with when he discovered the blood moons based on a 360-day year count. It came out to the year 5775, and of course that turned out to not be the Jubilee year, and then people began to believe that it was the following year, which was the 7th year, which was 49 years. But then God says that the Jubilee, the 50th year is to be hallowed, and the 50th year is the 8th year. That's when the new cycle begins. But over here in verse 22, it's saying that you're to eat from the old store until the fruits come in, and that would be in the 9th year. So that would be the Hebrew year 5778. And so the Jubilee actually lasts for 3 years, and it says that we're to eat from the old store until the fruits come in the 9th year, which would be the Hebrew year 5778. Okay, and so I believe that's why we're still here, and that's why the Jubilee has not taken effect yet, and that won't happen until the end of the 8th year and the beginning of the 9th year. And it's interesting that it's talking about returning unto your possession here in verse 27 and verse 28. Okay, so I pointed that out over here in the comments in Arthur Prudence's video because he also shared another really amazing video with me over here that was done by Many Fish, which is this video over here. It's called It's All About the Blood. It's by Many Fish, and there's some very interesting things in this video over here, but what I found particularly interesting was this part over here where he's talking about how Jesus was the 77th from Adam, according to this genealogy over here, which I believe is Matthew, and then according to the other genealogy, he was the 14th. Okay, I just fast forwarded a little bit. Okay, so this is from the side of Mary. He was 77th from the side of Mary, the genealogy, and 14th from the side of Joseph in the genealogy. Okay, and then he points out that the Hebrew year 5778 doesn't begin until March 17th, which would be Nisan 1. And so when you add 76 days to January 1st, that actually takes you to March 17th, which is Nisan 1. But then 14 days later, that takes you to the Passover, which is March 30th, 2018. But as you can see, that makes a perfect 88 days from January 1st. And of course, 88 is the number for Christ. And so that's a perfect number. And I think this is a perfect spot to end this video because I'm about out of time. So I'll have to continue in the next video. Thank you.